Woo! The hell. Right.
Good morning, mate.
Mr. Mcyntire.
How you going?
Yo.
You are frozen.
Boom. We are recording.
Boom. Well, it's John Mcyntire here and Ian Stanley, who the meeting of some email copywriters. People know me as the autoresponder guy. And people know you. I don't really know how to introduce you. I know you've done probably a lot more email copy than me for far bigger lists. I think what do you call yourself? I think in one of your pages or emails, something you call yourself the highest paid email copywriter in the world, which doesn't sound like it's an exaggeration from what I keep hearing. So yeah, so we were chatting. I bought your course. So
the world's laziest.
What's that?
So I think the world's laziest copywriter is actually what I've been called.
That might be true as well. I think email copywriters in general are pretty lazy. That's why we're all doing email instead of sales pages and all of that complicated stuff.
Well, I did a bunch of VSLs and sales pages. That's really what I did for a long time. But I started on email copy. But I feel like I've earned my laziness through lots of diligent work in the beginning. I created templates and sort of the thing about email that I love though is you can write a great email once and then put it in an autoresponder and it makes you money forever. Right. So it's whereas like a sales letter can go dry or you have to revamp it or different things, like great emails live forever. But yeah, I mean, I have definitely written a shit ton of email copy and worked with I think that's one of the big differences from when I started was like a lot of the email copy teachers and stuff, they like write their own emails just about email copy. And it's different than managing a list of, 1.3 million people or dealing with lists with hundreds of thousands. And then you've got all the deliverability and you've got all the different list management and different things that go into it. And I've never been really the deliverability guy, but it's definitely a different ballgame playing with those really big lists.
Yeah, I bet. So, so what happened? So I bought the course, your 80-20 email copy course, to brush up on some skills for a client I've just gotten to basically draw up like a proposal for him, and then I'll give him the main pitch. And so we're chatting about it on Facebook, and he said, well, why don't we get on the old Zoom, which is where we're recording this right now, and just talk it through, and then we can send it out to my list, to your list, and create some free content for everyone. And maybe sell some stuff as well at the same time, so everyone's really happy. It's like a win-win-win.
Yeah, it works. I was just at a coffee shop and we were talking, so it's like, and our time zones are so different. And talk like Thursday morning early or Thursday or whatever. I actually am free right now, so let's just hop on and do it. So I mean, this will be pretty high level, is what I'm guessing here, considering we're going to actually be looking at what you're working on and just go through it, have a bit of fun and see what it is. So I'll pull up, I'll share my screen and then just pull this up here. And we can go through it. Okay, so do you want to explain? So this is sort of the outline of the client itself, the brief that you gave them, and then sort of your outline and stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I had a guy reach out to me about, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks ago. Wants an autoresponder, obviously. They have an e-commerce store selling a physical product, really passionate market. I'm going to leave out the actual industry they're in just for probably obvious reasons. But yeah, so he comes in, he's got an autoresponder. It's pretty standard right now. I think it's based on the machine or something like that. Fairly like templates, like with filler content. And so he just wants to redo the whole thing to change it. And I think they're doing 8 figures every year right now. And the email apparently that they've got right now is somewhere around half of that. So it's a pretty big opportunity to, for him to kind of read the emails properly. So it was basically just he just wants an autoresponder. He doesn't even know exactly what he wants. He just wants something that sells more stuff than what he's got right now. So, and then it's my job to figure out what that actually means. And so that's the brief. That's the client. As far as the outline, what I was thinking is taking I think they're only really promoting like one offer right now. They're not really doing a very good job. It's all very just like, hey, here's an offer, like 3 sentences of prep or pre-sale, I suppose. Like there's not really a story or not much engaging type of stuff. Like not the kind of stuff you and I talk about where it's like you want people to fall in love with opening your emails because they like you. Like you, the way you talk about it is like they see the from there and they're like, man, I'm opening that email. So so the plan is to like integrate
where you make that.
Responder. Yeah. With stories, personal stuff, emotional stuff, all of that. And it's a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty simple business. Like it's in terms of like the actual products they sell, it's like I said, it's pretty passionate. I don't think there's really that much segmenting that's necessarily needed. Maybe you got some ideas on that. But what I was thinking is just taking their 4 best offers and spending 3 weeks on each one. So you'd have your, you know, doing maybe an email every 3 days for say 3 weeks, promoting offer 1, and then you transition the next 3 weeks, you do offer 2, the next 3 weeks you do offer 3. Just like that, and do it. I think that works out to be 12 weeks or 3 months. So then have what I would imagine is a pretty solid 3-month autoresponder, which would very likely sell a lot more than what they've got right now. And then I've got the offer.
Yeah. Can you share anything about? Can you share anything about the niche? Can you share anything about the niche?
Yeah, it's in the marijuana niche. So they're selling.
Okay.
Yeah, selling
and it's like a product.
Yeah, it's a physical product. People
that they can use to.
But they can use, yeah. People who you know want to grow or get involved in that whole thing. Yeah. So it's not selling. So it's an interesting niche.
Okay,
we're not like it's not selling information. There's no like none of this hero story. Here's what I discovered. Let me teach you how to do it. It's a bit of an interesting scenario, but I think there's a lot of because the whole way their brand is built is around, you know, the way they've structured it so far is that they've got this hero, you know, or this personal brand. The whole physical product thing, their strategy is built around a certain personality. So it's not like your typical e-commerce.
Does his first name start with a? Does his first name start with a C?
No.
Okay. I was curious if it was a friend of mine because I was like, if this is the guy I think it is, that'd be hilarious. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, it is a super passionate market. So this is more for people who are trying to grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the big theme there then is realistic. Like it's probably in some way making money, right? For these people, or do you think it's just growing for their own personal use?
It's a variety, man. Like when I've spoken to the client, it's things like some of them want to make money with it. Some of them are, you know, it's everything you can imagine, like all the reasons why some people want to sell. Some it's for the pain, some it's so they can sell, some it's so they can grow it and give it away to other people that need it. You know, so it's really a variety. I don't think the primary reason is that people want to sell it. That's one of the reasons.
Okay. Interesting. So, so you've got why are you thinking every 3 days?
My thinking behind it, that's what I've done a lot with clients in the past is every 3 days for a month. That was the main thing I was selling for a long time. But I think daily is probably too much for these people, where they probably burn out their list since it's a physical product. I could be wrong about that. You might probably have an opinion on that. But then, you know, spread it out to like once a week or, you know, less than that. It seems like it's not enough. You're going to lose people and you could be more aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I learned something very simple across literally every list I've ever worked with, which is, you know, the more you mail, the more you make. And I know that's scary for a lot of people. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I know you're frozen for me, but that's okay. It'll probably change. And I know that people get scared of that. And it doesn't mean that every single market needs daily emails every single day forever, no matter what. But I would definitely say that, are they opting in before buying anything, or are these buyers?
No, they'd be opting in for like some kind of, opt-in bribe, like a book or a guide or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, no matter what, pretty much always start with daily for the first week at least, and then maybe wean it down to like every other day, and then maybe to every third day or something. But when somebody's just opted in, you've got them in their most, their hottest sort of spot where you get to decide on how they're going to react to you. And I know it's good, that's more work on your end, but like if you're actually going to get, it looks like the offer is, 12K plus 5% of gross revenue. Is this already decided?
No, this is, I put that in there because I figured anyone who's watching this, like partly they want to know how to write emails, for example, or like how to structure something with a client, but also, well, how do you charge? So that was just what I'd basically come up with those numbers. I haven't discussed this with the client yet. So I was interested in hearing what you thought about that too, because I reckon a lot of people who are going to watch this are going to wonder about that. It's going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, what I've done, yeah, for sure. What I do with like email autoresponders is I normally do 15 to 20 up front. And then I have my structure of like flat fees. So basically, I mean, if they're making a lot from their list and they know they're doing well, like basically what I'll do is you take their existing conversion rate or what their sort of revenue is per, over the first 7 days or 14 days or 30 days. And then based on the increase in conversion, you get paid out flat fees. So that could be whatever numbers it is for this client. I've done for email, I've done $1,000 per percentage increase. So if you increase, their conversions by 40%, you make an extra 40 grand. Or what I normally do, I've done that with email, but what I normally do will be like, if it gets a 5 to 15% lift, I get 15,000, 16 to 25%, 30,000, 26 to 35, 45,000, and then 36% and above 60,000. But you can sort of work with them on what percentage flat payments work. But my whole belief on my rules for freelancing are, one is everybody wants to get paid monthly, but nobody wants to pay monthly. So basically you've got to, people want royalties, they want all the shit, but if you've actually owned a business, you realize paying royalties and percentages every month, like there's an accounting thing, there's all sorts of shit, resentment gets built up later. And then my second rule is, how do I get them excited to write a big ass check? Like where they feel excited to write that check. So they basically say, like they're like, oh my God, I hope I get to send you a check for 60,000 because that means we made a bunch more. I have clients who still have, one of my VSLs running. It's been 2.5 years and that VSL is done, I don't know, over 10 million, I'm sure. That's just one of their products across all of their stuff. And they paid me, 55 probably, I think it was something like that. And it's still running. And then my third rule is, what's the least amount of work I can do to get the biggest win, which is maybe my favorite rule. And again, that's why it's like, for me, it's like, I don't want to try and recreate the wheel. I just want to use what I've already used that I know works and then plug it into their system. But I would definitely, for the first week, I mean, if you want to test 2 different versions of something, do that. But I would always want to email daily, at least in the beginning. Like that's what we did with the credit solution stuff, was we would email close to daily, I think, for the 7 to 8 days. And then we would sort of back it down. It's just like, there's so much, especially if they're buying traffic, like there's so much revenue you can make up for in that first week that'll help,
right,
a bunch.
Let's say that then. Let's map it out. So like daily emails for week 1, then what you do every second day for week 2 and 3.
Yeah, every third day. Yeah. It really depends. I mean, I would then, so every second day for weeks 1 through 3, and then say day 21 on every third day. It really depends. I mean, this is a pretty passionate market. Like you can probably write more than you think. I would definitely, like, if this is my company and I wanted to test it, I would absolutely test sending every day and just see what happens. I mean, I've had the experience where when I send two a day, more gets made. If you send the right emails, it's not annoying. I mean, I get responses like, I don't know if you saw the one I wrote the other day about the, like my $105,000 dinner thing. Um,
Yeah.
but that got like, I didn't even know if it was a good story. I was like, this is different. And I got so many responses like, this is the best story I've ever read in an email. I read every word. Well, shit. And it's like, I just told a story about some stuff. And, it's this different because you're coming in as a consultant, but like, there's always the opportunity to write more. But with something like this, if they're only sending now every few days, I bet you can beat their shit just by sending more. And if you're not doing, then, you're not going to do it in a scammy way or like just like a buy or die mentality where then they're going to lose out over the long term. But, I definitely would start with more emails because the big thing that you want to do, like if you want to beat the control and then do it again, is like once you get the data back over the first 30 days, you go back through all the emails and you see which ones are getting the best responses. And then I call it a Franken sequence. It's you then go back and sort of piece together all the best emails into a different order based on what's actually winning. Because just like no human can truly predict what's going to work in the realm of copy, right? People vote with their wallets. So you let them decide what's actually good and what's not. So like I did this for the money autoresponder. I just sent out emails to my list, and then I literally went through and picked the ones with the highest opens and clicks and sales, and then put those in a sequence based on which ones did really well. So instead of me being like, oh, this is what I think will work, like I just base things off of the data. So once you test the first 30 days, you could go back and try and beat that control again by taking the best stuff. And then it's sort of like a greatest hits. But the way I look at it is like South Park, right? I view South Park as the ultimate email strategy of like, if I want to get somebody to get into South Park, right? I'm like, I have a friend and I want you to watch South Park because it's a great show. I could just be like, go watch 3 episodes, right? Go watch 7 episodes and tell me what you think. And they'd pick 7 random episodes. And they may be 7 of the worst episodes. They may be 7 that don't really apply, that they don't love. But if I knew the person and I was like, oh, watch this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, there's a much higher chance that they're going to get super into the show because I picked the best episodes and the ones. And then the reason I say South Park is because they're the only show in the world that creates shows and they create their shows in 6 days. So they're the only show that has truly topical, relevant material. Like they did an episode 3 weeks ago about scooters. And I don't know if because you probably haven't been around them because you're in Thailand, but the fucking scooters in America, they're all over the place. And the episode is hilarious and it's incredibly topical. And only they can do that. So once you once you go through this autoresponder of all the best hits, then you start sending daily emails or every 3 days, whatever it is, based on time, relevant stuff. They actually did an episode on weed recently and vaping, which should be probably a great piece of content. Actually, I would probably put that into this as like talk about vaping in South Park and stuff, because I would assume these type of people are probably into South Park. And when you connect on something like that, it's weird. South Park is such a good show, and the people that are into it, like when somebody else says they're into South Park, you're like, oh, we could be friends. So, but that's sort of the way I look at it. So like you can start out with the stuff that you think is going to work and then go back and use what you know is already working to restructure it. And then I always like to add in open loops and stuff, but I don't do it sort of like Andre Chaperone style is like, people go through the product and I did this too. And you're like, this is the coolest shit ever. Like it's so complex and Hollywood stories and all this shit. And then most people don't do it. And like it's taken 2 or 3 hours to write an email. And I'm writing them in 15 minutes. And instead of all these like nested loops and open loops and stuff, I just go back. If I have an autoresponder sequence, I look at something I talked about on day 7 and I'll just add a sentence to day 3 talking about day 7. And that takes me 2 minutes as opposed to 2 hours. So there's a lot you can do there, but I definitely, as far as the outline of this, if that like any list owner, if they're afraid of sending daily, say, okay, let's just take 20% of the new opt-ins and run them through the daily and see how they perform. Or let's take 1,000 people, run them through the daily, or 5,000 and test that, because they may be afraid, but if you take a small enough portion of their list, you should be able to make that work. Like where they'll be willing to test it. So it doesn't matter how good a shit you write. If they're like, no, we won't test it, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, well, so working back then, because I think it'd be really cool to see how this develops. So you're saying 15 to 20K. Is there any difference between 15 to 20K? Like, why would you choose 15 instead of 20?
In my experience, stupidity. Because anytime I remember I was sitting on the couch with my buddy. It's probably 4 or 5 months. It's probably 6 months ago. So, and I was like, I'm sending this off for 20K. Should I just do 25? And he was like, yeah. And so I just said 25. And then he's like, okay, cool, 25. And yeah, I mean, I would always start higher. I mean, if they're making that much from their list, then why not? Like if you can, the biggest, and this is what I say to clients is, do you care, this is on the work side, but I'll say, do you care how much I work or do you care that I win? And they say, well, I care that you win. And I say, okay, cool. But on the front end, it's like, what is this potentially worth to you? If this brings in, if all it does is increase 10%, that's going to be, and I do the math. Like I very specifically do the math for people. You're getting 1,000 opt-ins a day. If we increase that just 10%, I start really small, then we're going to bring in an extra $2,000 a day, $4,000 a day, whatever it is, right? And that's profit because it's not, whatever, or it's like, 80% of that's profit. So, let's map that out. That means just in the first month, you've made an extra, $60,000. Is it worth $20,000 for you to make an extra $60,000 every month? And when you say those questions, people are just like, I literally will ask them those questions. Like if I said, give me 20,000 and I'll give you 60 a month.
Right. I mean, so I've done this before. I'd do that calculation like before getting to buy into the calculation first and then give them the price. But it sounds like you do the price, and then if they give you an objection, you then run the calculation by the sound of it.
Maybe. Honestly, phone selling for me or like talking to clients has always been kind of easy just because I had very good credibility. So when I started, like the first offer I did when I started freelancing, they offered me 20,000 per VSL plus a potential 60,000 each plus 1,500 per email I wrote. And so I started from this point of like, okay, I know what people are willing to pay me and people know what I charge. So the only time I ever charge less, like I'll say to people, I'll be like, all right, here's like, these are not fake. This is what I charge. It's 25,000 up front. These are my numbers. If you want to try and work on the numbers on the back end, I'll work with you on that to make sure that it's a win-win-win. But this is how my fees are. So like they know coming in, like there's the price anchor of that amount pretty much. But it depends. Like I'll be flexible depending on the situation, but I've found a very simple rule is the only people I've had one client, maybe it was two, but one that I charged like $5,000 up front based on this like future earnings of like, and like a TV appearance and these different things. And it was the worst client I've ever worked with by far. I hated it. And I knew it was going to be bad. And I still decided to do it. And so I just recently turned one down. It was like 10K up front plus a lot of potential back end. And I was like, because I said 10K because they'd already worked with somebody. And I was like, I'll do it for half because of this back end. And then I was like, I turned it down. I was like, you know what? I actually don't want to do it. It's not right for my energy right now. But whenever I charge less on the front, the worse it tends to be because the clients that understand that just tend to be better and they're bought in and they test what you send as well. Because that's what sucks is when they don't even test what you send. If they fuck up, they're like, well, I'm going to change this. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of I'd probably do present the price, and then I don't really get objections. I just sort of go through the math and whatever it comes up, but I really I will do the math if they need to hear it. Because people don't naturally do that. They're not sitting there thinking, well, if we do this, you have to kind of do that for them. And then you ask them that question and people feel pretty dumb at saying no to, like, you know, if I gave you 20, if you gave me 20 grand and I gave you an extra 60 grand a month, would you take that deal? People are like, well, yeah, obviously. And you go, okay, well, that's what I'm offering you.
Okay, so you can do that. All right, cool. So let's say that then. Let's say the offer's 20K. What you said as well, like, so $1,000 per percentage increase, is that just the default? Or do you work with the client to figure out what that amount is? Like, do you just go straight to 1,000 per percentage?
Yeah. I mean, you could, it depends. I normally do the flat fee one, and then I would go to the 1,000 per percentage after that. And then if they're, you know, depending on where they're at, if they were really like, well, we can't do that, it'd be like, okay, well, I'll do 500 per percent. But I always need a back end. For me, it's not worth it because I'll do the bare minimum. That's just how I operate. Like, I need incentive.
Right.
I tell people that too. I say, look, if you want to do a flat fee one time, like, I'm not going to put my best work in.
Okay. And then when do you, so like,
because we're humans. Humans are incentive driven.
Right. Right. So let's say we do it then. Let's say he's like, yeah, all right, let's do it. 20 grand up front, 1 grand per percentage improvement. We write emails, they send them out. How do you work? Like, how does that conversation get out? Like a month later or 3 months later, like, do you get back on the phone and say, all right, let's look at the numbers. What's the percentage improvement? All right, I'll send you an invoice for the 20%.
Yeah. So I would take I would define you want it. So I've made some mistakes that have cost me, I think it's close to like 70,000 now. That had I written things out differently in the email, I would have had 70,000 extra in cash, which wouldn't be bad. And basically what I do now is I say, you have to send me a screenshot of the actual test. Because I basically had this situation with this client, and they've been very, very good to me, and they've paid me a lot of, like, them alone have paid me hundreds of thousands over the last couple of years for not a lot of work. And but there was this situation where basically I had realized that I beat the control by a lot, and he just kind of like had vague language, like, oh, I beat it by at least this amount. And so the next one I said, I want to get a screenshot of any testing. Like, I want the act, and they could fuck with the screenshot, whatever. But people always ask me about like, well, how do you know they're going to pay ahead? I only work with people I trust. So if I don't trust them, I'm not going to work with them. But so the way that I'll do it is, for an autoresponder, it'd be like, we define the term. So over 7 days, 14 days, let's say 28 or 30 days, we take your existing conversion rate, and then we'll take the conversion rate from when through my sequence, and then in 10 days. So I'll then either within 7 or 14 or 10 days, when the conclusion of the test happens, I'm paid within 10 days of that result. Right. It's like, these are just contract things that I've fucked up in the past, and you only can learn through mistakes. And so these are little things that I write in. And I also write, it's not because this happened to me with an email client, is they tested something else against mine, but it was like a VSL test. And so we were like, mine beat it by like, I think 23%, and that did 27, but it was an uneven test because they tested something totally separate, and mine with that would have been even more. And so they're like, well, we tested this, so we didn't pay out. That would have been, and this one was the 1,000 per percentage improvement. So I would have made 23,000, and they didn't pay that out. And so then it was like, if it's based on the current control, it's not based on something new that you're going to test. Like, it's just like a couple of sentences, but it's that clarity guarantees that you actually get paid out for the work that you're doing, and that because any sort of gray area in language, and these are good people. Again, these aren't bad people who are trying to fuck me over, but
Yeah.
it's just how the things worked out in those situations. Um, but those things definitely play a role uh, in how you want to structure it. And again, this is like why I when I teach like copy stuff, I say that there's plenty of good writers, and there are plenty of great writers who make very little money, and there are plenty of average writers who make good money, but very few people make that much from actual freelancing. And the difference isn't the quality of your writing so much, it's the quality of your ability to structure contracts. And I got lucky because I had a few clients basically do these things for me and give me these ideas. But that's what's made me so much from so little work when I freelance, is that I structure my contracts in a way that genuinely makes me money from not a lot of work. And again, that's just there's no way to, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how creative you are. It's very hard to just come up with contract ideas out of the blue and know how to structure something. The best way to do it is just have experience or have somebody else tell you what they've done. Sometimes you get a stroke of brilliance and you come up with something creative, but the difference with what you're looking at here is like what you would put down. If they take this compared to what you put down, is there's no work difference for you per se, right? But you might make an extra 8 to 20 or 30, 40 grand from this offer.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, with that in mind, with the contracts, because I don't think you included in the 80/20. I don't know if you'd be up for sharing, but that'd be awesome to see something like that. I reckon everyone else would like it too, even if you templatize it or just rip out.
What just?
Yeah. What is one like? Because I mean, so for me personally, because I've done this for 6 years, and for me it was always send it. Like I never had like an actual written contract that's signed or anything. I would send the client an email saying, "Here's what we just spoke about on the phone. Here's the price. Here's the terms. Like I'll give it to you in 2 weeks, however long. Here's a link to pay." And my thinking was always just that they agree to the email. So if they fuck up or if they disagree, then
That's what I still just do it. I still just do it through email, but I could do that as like a bonus for people who join, from your list and my list this week or whatever. I'll send them what I can also just show a few examples of like what I do when I start with a client. And I don't do a lot of client work anymore, but there are some people, like I have like a couple of people who are very successful, who have like, companies doing multiple 8 figures. And so those are the only people I've ever done any work for up front for free, but I've made tens of thousands from very little work just by beating their controls. But I trust them very much. So I know that they'll actually pay and that they'll test. Because the big thing too is you got to realize the reason that I always take up front, other than literally, it's basically been one client, is because I don't know that they're going to test. If they don't put skin in the game, I don't know that they will test what I do. And I don't care. I don't want 10 grand or 20 grand. I want 50 or 80 from that work. So, because if I'm going to take time away from my businesses, I want it to be a lot. And if they literally do the worst, the only times I've charged less, there was one, I think I charged 10K up front and they paid 5K flat. And then they were supposed to pay the other 10 after, and they paid the 5 and then they didn't test anything. And then she's like, well, can you write this? And I said, no, I will not write anything else until you test what I've sent you.
Yeah.
This is how it works. I'm not going to do shit. I will not. I always like related it to when I was at the credit solution stuff for a while. He had stopped testing a lot of stuff I'd written. So I just stopped writing anything that I didn't know for sure was going to be tested. And it's just like, it's like a rat in a cage where if you go up and you hit the little water lever and it gives you water once, like, okay, I'll go back. But if you hit it again and no water comes out, you hit it again, no water comes out, you hit it again, no water comes out, you're going to stop trying. So I make sure, like, making them pay means they're actually going to test it. And ultimately that's for their benefit. It's putting skin in the game. If I say, I'll do it for free, they can let some shit sit on their hard drive and collect dust while I'm twiddling my thumbs, hoping that they're going to test and I'm going to make money.
Right. Yeah, man. So I've had the same problem. People go, oh, I'll give you this, write this autoresponder, write this thing for me, and I'll refer you all these clients. They have some kind of promise. And then you give it to them, and then 3 months later, they're like, oh, we just haven't used it yet. We've gone in a different direction. And nothing comes of it. All right. Well, Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to see one of the contracts or just some examples of what you actually mean. It's always good, man, just seeing what how different people do it. Because a lot of people don't talk about some of this stuff. Like everyone shares like even in the course, it's all about subject lines and writing. This is what I teach people as well. But like some of the that's why I wanted to include the money thing here, because a lot of people don't talk in too much detail about that, how they do it or what they actually say. So, yeah, man. One thing I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
and
was like,
it's the piece that,
yeah,
well, I was going to say that's the difference between making 10 grand a month or 5 grand a month and 20 or 30 grand a month isn't really, it's not like people like, I need to get better at writing or I need to do this. Maybe like still work on your craft, but the biggest needle mover is going to be how much you actually get paid for the work you do. And also most people, and you've been through the Lionheart Money course, so you know this, but a lot of people think they just have to work harder to make more. And that's very true in copy if you don't change your contracts. Because like, well, I get paid 10 grand a sales letter, but I need to write 3 a month to get to 30 grand. Well, or you change the structure of your contract or find different clients so that you can make from that same amount of work or even less work. Because the thing is, I think when I write sales letters and VSLs, I don't even write the full thing. I'll literally go back in and rewrite a lead and get 20 grand to spend an hour rewriting a lead and then potentially another 15 to 60 based on how it does. And it's not time intensive. And that's why I say to clients, do you care how much I work or do you care that I win? And any smart client says, I care that you win. And so this offer that you make a client really is the difference between making, you can literally double your income and work half as much if you set this up right. Or at least I always say to people, start with trying to work the same amount and making more from that same amount of work, and then start to reduce the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how would you, so 20K, we do 1K per percentage improvement. Say he says yes. And then you go, so it was just saying, so let's say we let it run. I think the other one they've got running right now is probably a couple of weeks. So you might say like the same amount. So 2 or 3 weeks, if it beats the conversion rate on that, every percentage is $1,000. So we put say 5 or 10,000 people through it, compare the conversion rates. You'd have to wait, I guess, 3 weeks or whatever. Or a month to go through that. Then you get on the phone and you have that conversation. You look at the 2 screenshots.
Yeah, and you can also you could take revenue per subscriber over that amount. Like make sure it's a metric that you can measure and that they feel like is actually going to move the needle for them. But like revenue per subscriber would be a great way to test it, where it's like if they know over 28 days the average person's worth $7 or $3, then if you get it up to $4.50, you've just increased it 50%. And they go, oh shit, now we can pay instead of, because the big difference for them too is like, if they can pay $3 per subscriber right now, right? They can pay $3 to acquire an opt-in, right? If you get them to, and they can get 1,000 opt-ins a day, if you can get them to be able to pay $4.50 per opt-in, they may be able to go from 1,000 opt-ins a day to 5,000. Depending on the market they're in, which is then it's exponential. Then the growth in that company becomes way bigger because of what you did. So that's other stuff I'll talk about. Because basically all of traffic has this thing that I call the cliff, where if you can get to a certain amount that you can pay per opt-in or per buyer, you can sort of outspend most people. And that's where you go from 1,000 a day to 5,000 or 5,000 a day to $20,000 a day. And it's based on that day 0, or if you know your money, your metrics well, that day 30 value, and you can float the cash. That's how you can really grow a business. And so you can be a big part in them being able to grow that.
Right. All right. So then you could do that. So that's the offer then. And then with the outline or the actual email thing, would you say something like, say daily emails for a week? And then every second day for 2 weeks after that. So you get 7 emails and 7 more, and then maybe 21 every third day for another. What would you do? I mean, like a week, 2 weeks, right? Like, would you build it out for like 3 months, or would you just start with like a month to begin with and see where that lands you?
I would probably just start that first month and see how it's doing.
The first month.
And then go there. I mean, you could build it out a little longer if you want. I also don't know that I would only focus on one offer at a time, like per 3 weeks, because you may want to just intersperse based on the topic you're talking about, the different little products and stuff, because the thing you don't know is what they want to buy,
Yeah, that's
right?
fair. Yeah.
Like they may, if there's one offer that's really essentially the big thing, then put that as your big first offer. But after that, like I would intersperse the different offers, because one guy might want, the best dirt to grow weed, and this guy might want the best lights, and this guy might want the best, irrigation. And it doesn't matter if you promote them really well. If they're not in the beginning and they get off the list or something, it's not going to do as well. So yeah, I would definitely, like, you don't just the kind of the way I look at it is whatever like topic is the best topic, or like story or like correlation is best, relate that to whatever product best fits that, as opposed to saying I'm only promoting this week.
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, it's kind of
Because
like, I don't
you're
know about
putting
you.
yourself in the box.
Yeah, but when you're writing as well, you get these ideas that come out, and sometimes they're kind of off the wall, not what you expect, but they end up being a really good idea. So it would kind of make sense to take whatever's the most relevant to that story or that hook or that whatever, and mixing that with whatever offer makes the most sense, rather than trying to force it, the square peg into a round hole type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like in the health space, there's a lot of affiliate stuff, and I've managed lists and that, and I see how these guys, they make probably more per, they do more testing than anybody else, and they'll promote different shit every day. It doesn't mean that that's always the best long-term strategy, or that they're always doing it really well, but they're concerned with what the people want as opposed to what we think they want, right? Like, I think that they want me to talk in this way about this thing for this many days. Like, no, they just want to, like, people want to buy shit. They want to buy shit that they think will make them happier or richer or whatever it is, and, or get them out of pain. So, if you write the right, like, it's silly to try and force a product, right? If you've written this great story and it relates more to a different offer, then promote that.
Right. Right. One thing I just thought of, which I hadn't thought of until now, but like there would be different needs. Like some people want to sell it, some people want to grow it and give it to other people. Some people just want to grow it and say for their own use. Would it be worth, like, to me, this would add a whole bunch of complexity and maybe not make it that much better, but would it be worth splitting that, like segmenting that, like email one, getting people to raise their hand? Or, I mean, my thinking is that you just use this and start, because this will probably easily beat what they got right now. Rather than, once you split it up into segments, it starts to get harder to track and everything like that.
Yeah, I always would say, my rule is, and like we're doing this with the money quiz list right now, is like, so we have this quiz for the money DNA quiz, and based on what answer they get 2 emails right away. So they get one that's the general welcome email, and then they get the second one, which is sent basically at the same time, which gives them their actual block in case, because on Facebook and on Instagram and stuff, when you opt in, you can click away from that page and then never get to see that page again. So I send them that page, and they can go watch the video on their specific block, or they can go buy the product. But the difference is like, that's all that really changes, right? And then I do have a reply email that I'm going to send that goes out to people that have over 6 figures, people that make over 250,000, people that make over 1 million, to get them into a higher ticket stuff. But outside of that, like, my rule is start as simple as you can and then add complexity. So with what you're doing, you don't want to start with, let me segment these 3 types of people and then do all this shit. Like, if you want to, you can try and find out who those people are, but you could also just write 3 different emails over 3 days. One's like,
Yeah, that's
about, if you want to sell this to other people, whatever. And then if one of those emails is crushing it, or you get a bunch of responses, whatever, then you're like, oh, this is a big segment. Maybe it's worth dividing them out into their own little thing. That's what I use Active Campaign, and I didn't really like it for a long time, because I used to have such a big block around sending my own emails. Like, I hated going into the autoresponder or into the broadcast and sending it myself.
Right.
It only takes 5 to 10 minutes, but I hated it. So
Right.
I had other people do, I wouldn't do it. And now I actually do it. And I've started working with Active Campaigns autoresponder. It's kind of cool the little things I can do. Like now what I do is for people who open the first email, I send them this long story about my dog and um, how he almost died and all this stuff. Like it's probably my best story. And I send that to people who've opened because they've opened, and people read that whole thing and it changes my entire relationship to them. But what you can do is take people who've clicked, like these are the little segmentation things that are a lot easier to implement rather than like segmenting. It's just triggers, right? So you take like, oh, they clicked on the email about how to make money from growing weed, right? So now I'm going to send them one email right away that says, hey, I wanted to talk to you about it a little more, and here's some main benefits of blah blah blah. You can do stuff like that, but again, especially with what you do, start simple. See if you get any movement from the original stuff you write, and then add layers of complexity. Because it's just like you can get yourself into this whole just frenzy of like automation and
Lots
software
of
and all
work.
this. Yeah, and lots of work. And that's the thing is you don't know, like nobody knows what's going to work. No, any copywriter who says, I know what's going to win, I know what's not, is lying. They can say, I know what's always won in the past, or I know what I believe will win, but you can't know anything in this world. The only way that people truly tell you what works is with their wallets. That's it. That is how simple it is. And so you don't want to you're assuming that this is going to work, and you put in all this work and all this shit, and then it doesn't. You go, wow, I put in way too much. Like we did this with a quiz and it did end up working, which is good, but we spent 5 months building out a quiz, follow up, all this shit back when the quiz stuff first started. With the money quiz, we spent like a week or two instead of 5 months, because I'm like, let's just test if the concept even works and then go from there. Because what if it bombs? And then we've put in 5 months into software and complexity and all this bullshit. So let's just start with the simplest thing we can and go from there.
Right. I think you've saved me a lot of work. This is good.
It's what I'm good at. It's not doing too much work.
This is good. It's really, really, really interesting. I don't think of anything else.
Well, it's like you said, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the game. Like you can't know what you don't know. You know, like somebody could be, I know guys who've been writing copy for 20 years and I surpass them in income pretty quickly, not because I'm super smart or because I'm better than them, because I structured it differently. And one client said, I'll pay you this. And I said, I like that. Now I'm going to do that. And this client told me was, I pay you $5,000 for VSL or whatever it is. And they're, 55 years old and making less than I am and doing probably literally 10 to 20 times the amount of work. And again, it's not because I'm special smart. It's just like you can only know what you know, and you can only really learn what you're exposed to. And so some people just get lucky like I have and figure out a different way to do things. But it also goes back to, which some stuff about because of the Lionheart money shit. Like when I was a kid, I started. I don't think I would have told you this, but when I was 12 years old, I started stringing tennis rackets,
I
and
think I
I
read
would
the story.
make $25 a racket. I can't remember if I wrote it or if I just said it somewhere. I know I've said it on stage.
You had the whole
I think
Wimbledon
I
thing,
did.
like the whole high
I can't remember.
pressure, needing to win all the time. That's the whole Lionheart story, right?
Oh, that's the whole, yeah, the whole having to win at tennis and everything. That's like all my darkness comes from tennis. But this was actually one of the few positive. Well, there are plenty of positives because when you play sports when you like to get to the point where you won a national championship, you have to have learned a lot of skills as far as discipline and different shit like that. But I basically coasted on talent and wasted a lot of it because everything's a paradox. Like being skilled at something means that you naturally good at something means you don't have to work as hard, which means you don't learn how to work as hard, which is its own whole set of bullshit. But as far as the money stuff goes, when I was 12 and I started stringing rackets, I'd get $25 a racket. And normally people do them in about 30 minutes a racket. I got to the point where I could do one in 16 minutes. But realistically, like with changing the rackets and stuff, I could do two in an hour. But that meant that at 12 years old, I would make $50 in an hour when I worked, which obviously it wasn't like I had a full-time job doing this. I was, I'd work an hour or two a week, but that's a lot of money for a 12-year-old. And the other kids my age, if they were doing anything, they'd go mow a lawn for $5 or whatever. So they literally learned that, yeah, you got to put in hard work to get money. And what I learned is money and time are not related. And I can just do different shit than other people or be better at it and make more.
Right.
Framed, this is only something I've realized in the past like 2 months, but that's really what framed me from the copy world is I can work less, make more than other people. Simply because of something I learned when I was 12 years old that I had no conscious awareness of until recently.
Yeah, it reminds you of something. Jesse Elder, I was on one of his webinars. I think you're buddies with him. It's on Facebook or something. But he mentioned this.
He's coming over to my house today. He's staying at my house tonight.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But it's that whole thing, right? Like money doesn't care. Money doesn't care how much you work.
He's great.
Money cares about the value that's getting moved around. Yeah, man. It's interesting. So, and I'm curious how, so this guy wants an outline.
Yeah, that's a great line.
This guy wants an outline. Well, that's what I told him I'd give him anyway. And I'll probably send something over to him on Friday. I was just going to send him like an email one. Here's this email two, here's this. But then it's sort of like part of the writing process is you making it up as you go along. Like you're coming up with email ideas as you write. So like what would you give to the client in terms of an outline, or, if you had to give them something like that? Because basically I charged him to basically come up with this. So instead of being like, I'll come up with a proposal for free, charged him a couple grand just to come up with the idea of what we'll actually do together. And then the idea is then I'll pitch him on like the main project, which will be this one we're talking about here. So really all I got to do is just basically give him something.
And does that deposit go to a contract?
We didn't discuss that. I thought about doing that as to make, because you could do that a bunch of different ways. But I didn't say that or anything. I just said, here's the price I didn't call it a proposal. I just said, look, it's a couple grand for me to plan this out. I'll read your website. I'll go through everything and plan something out that I think will work. And then, we'll talk about what it's going to cost and what it's going to take to set it all up. So I need to give him something.
That's cool. That's a good idea. Yeah. So we go that. So I was just going to say, that's something people can do too, is you can say like, it's $1,000 or $2,000 for the initial call. And that's non-refundable, but if we do work, it goes towards whatever your initial payment is. So instead of 20 grand, it would be 18, right? For the second payment or something. But so what I would do is I would outline like your welcome email, like put like day 0 welcome email. Then you could write, 6 hours. We send them the, did you get this? Or the Instagram email or, something like that. Day 1, if you've seen the Glyphy map, right? In the product.
Yeah, I was going through that today. So that's what I was thinking, is giving him, because that's similar to what I used to do for clients, is the whole welcome, did you get this email, then follow up some kind of story that establishes the hero type of thing.
Yeah, I would just send him like this type of page, and literally, because here's the thing, I would just send him like that structure of like the ideas of the types of emails you're going to write, because it looks like, oh shit, this guy knows what he's doing. Like this is a proven structure. Like just send him, be like, I'm going to base the structure off of a sequence that I know works. Here's the order of how I'm going to put things. And then literally just put like this here, like welcome email. Did you get this? Education based this, correlation email.
Just do that for like the whole set of emails.
Just put those in order. And he'll be like, oh, that looks legit. When you go write it, who gives a fuck if you use the structure? Right? Again, you sell them what they want and you give them what they need. So you just show him what he wants is the belief. He wants to believe that what you're going to do is going to work. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. And what he really needs is more fucking money from his autoresponder. So you
Yeah.
sell him, you show him that you know what you're doing, and then he goes, okay, cool. And then when you go to write it, I would still follow the structure, but like if you deviate from it, he's going to be like, well, I actually don't think that this is a correlation email based on what you said day 7 was going to be, right? So you just show him that you know what you're doing, and it's like, because I remember I don't know if you know Vince Del Monte, he said big fitness business for ages, and he went through my product and he was like, and I emailed him like 10 days later because it was an event that we met, and he got the product, and then we talked, and I was like, hey man, like, what did you think? How did it go? And he was like, dude, I completely forgot to email you back because I was so fucking deep into like redoing our autoresponders. Like I restructured all of it, and like it's doing really fucking well. And but like just having like the second he saw the Glyphy map of like here's the structure, he was like, oh shit, this is real, you know. And it's like that's the click moment when people go, oh yeah, this makes sense, this guy knows what he's doing. And
Yeah.
again, everything, like I said, I've earned my laziness because I made systems for email copy because I figured out what worked, and then I just deconstructed it and then rebuilt it.
Yeah, fuck. All right, cool. It was really funny, like this whole week. And this ties into some of the Lionheart stuff where like, because I think I spoke to this client last week. It was 2 weeks ago, Sam. So I said I'd take 2 weeks to put this whole thing together. And I've been procrastinating on it as we all tend to do. And on the one hand, part of me felt bad for not really putting that much time into it. And then another part of me was kind of like, yeah, but does it really, he's not really paying for like the time. He just wants to see, like you just said, he just wants to see that I know my shit, be sold on that, and then pay. So then I thought about the Lionheart stuff where it's like, man, I've got this belief where it's like, I need to work hard and I feel guilty if I don't put in a certain amount of, like if a client pays X amount of dollars, it's like, I feel guilty if I don't put in a certain amount of time, even though I know this whole idea of like, money doesn't give a shit. He doesn't even really care at the end of the day. He just wants the result. And so and now I'm talking about this, I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
but here's the
really
thing.
not that hard.
This is why. So this is why Lionheart works. This is why the corrections process works. I was talking to Whitney about this yesterday for myself, which is I keep having. So I have this very big goal that I have set. I just started, and this could deviate into such a long discussion, but I just started this 90-day microdosing ayahuasca thing. I'm like 6 or 7 days in, and I'm not drinking for 90 days, which for me is a really big deal. And that's sort of, drinking is my way of lowering my energy so that I feel, partially so that I'm not so energetic that I have to work out a couple hours a day, but also it's just a very simple way for me to be. It's just fun, and it's like kind of my way of dampening my production. And so I have this big goal, and I won't say what it is because I think that when you tell people your goals, and I basically, just so you know, I basically stopped setting goals after I first went to Brent because my entire life was about setting a goal, hitting a goal, setting a goal. So I had to kind of back off, but I've started again. And I think when you tell people your goals, you get all of the validation as though you've already achieved it. And then you don't have to fucking do anything. People do these big, oh, I'm going to tell people my big, hairy, audacious goal. I'm going to step on stage and I'm going to make this amount of money, or I'm going to help like all these people that are like, I'm going to help 1 billion people get fucking, get food. And I'm like, that's great. That's really cool. And everybody goes, that person is so impressive. Or like, this is one that I hear, I'm going to have $1 billion company. And people go, oh my God, he's so ambitious. He's so impressive. Guess what? He's doing 2 million a year right now. Motherfucker's pretty far away. Stop giving him accolades as though he's achieved the thing that he's talking about. He's in a niche that can maybe do 7 million a year annually. And he thinks he's going to do $1 billion. And that's great. That's really good for him. But what happens is the people around you start to tell you how great you are, and then you don't have to do anything. So I won't say what the goal is, but I've realized my big fear is achieving the goal, which I've known my whole life. It's always been fear of success as opposed to fear of failure. And I was talking to Whitney about it yesterday, and I'm like, the thing that keeps coming up for me is, if I get that, then what? And logically, I know that there will still be plenty of things to do in my life. There's a bunch of shit I want to do. There's still going to be growth and all these things. I logically understand that. But my teen or my child basically is like afraid. So my child is where I want to go. And my teen, let's just close off and not even go there. Right. So it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what my child or my teen believes. So just like you just said, you know, logically that money doesn't give a fuck how much work you do or how much time you put in, but your teen or your child, I'm trying to think who it is, feels guilty about the fact that you're not putting in enough time. So it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what you believe at your core. And unless you go through and do a correction and go to the root of where it comes from, it's not going to change. That's why when Gary Vee is on Instagram spouting all this shit, he goes, well, just fucking don't care what people think. Just stop caring what people think. It doesn't work because you can't just tell someone to stop doing a thing. If that was the case, we wouldn't even have to have information products on self-development because people would be like, I'm eating too much. You'd be like, eat less. And they'd be like, oh, it's so easy. Now that you've told me, I've realized that that is in fact the secret to weight loss. It's like, no, what happened is their dad beat them with a spoon. And so they have a weird relationship to food that they have to deal with. So it's just, it's interesting. So like with what you're talking about, you know, you're having this, most everybody has been conditioned to believe that time and money are related, right? We're taught from the first time we get paid hourly, right? Typically, like in a job, here's $10 an hour, here's whatever it is. And then when we get older, we get paid a salary. So we still get paid an amount of money based on the amount we work over the course of a year. Time and money are constantly related. They have no actual relationship in real life. That's just something that we're taught. So we're conditioned to believe that we have to work a certain amount in order to make a certain amount, or that we have to, and then we have all these emotional, oh, I told them, you know, I'd work this much. My goal is always, how little can I work? How little time can I put in? There's certain stuff I really give a shit about and I want to put in time because I enjoy it. But otherwise, like, yeah, you could have filled out this brief in an hour or 20 minutes, you know, sent it to him that next day. And then you could already have 20 grand in the bank and be working on finishing the autoresponder next week and then be that much closer to all of that coming in.
Yeah. Would you, on that note, would you, yeah, I know. Dude, we can talk about this shit for ages, but on the money note, would you leave that part in? Because I was going to take that out, let him read it and then buy into it, bang it on the phone. And once he's like, yeah, it's cool. What do we do now? And then I go, all right, here's the price.
I would maybe just send him the outline and then, but pretty quickly have this. I don't know. I like to send people that because then they know. I send the price stuff. I typically lead with that because I don't want to get involved if they don't know what I'm going to be charging.
Right. Interesting.
Right, like if they're not going to be comfortable paying me. Well, it's like, okay, it's 20 grand. What am I going to get for that? It doesn't mean that you have to put it at the top of the outline. I would put it at the bottom, I guess. But like when I send, I'm just thinking back to like what I actually, and then I start out what I charge. Actually, that's how I start my conversations. Now that I think about it, like when they go, well, what do you know, what's the deal? And I say, well, it's 20 to 25 grand up front. And then it's this on the back end. I mean, it has to make sense for who's running it, but that's what I charge. And then the conversation can start. Because if I decide I want to charge,
that's great. It's really interesting.
I do, but you got to realize though, in some degrees, I'm in a unique position because when I take on clients, it's because I feel like it and because I want a cash injection basically of like actual cash flow, because making 30 grand, say I promote a product to my list and I make, you know, one of my products and I make 30 grand that week or 20 grand, I may have made 15 or 10 if I was buying traffic, or I may have, you know, and then I've got employees, whatever it is. If I write for someone and I make 30 grand and I put in a few hours, like that's $30,000 in my account, clean, just 30,000. So like, that's how I have built most of the businesses, is like, I've used the money from other people to fund my businesses, so that I can still live a good life while building those things. And I can basically leave that money in those businesses. But so that position dramatically changes things, right? Where I don't need it. But that's also just a mindset, right? Like I've had times where, like, even recently, actually, I had my like bank account go down lower than it's been in a while. And I realized I had my own stuff starting to come up around that. And the reality was we were building out the quiz and we were doing stuff. So cash flows are going to go a little lower, and that's okay. Which, like, within the money, the three types of money we talked about, I'm like, okay, now it's time for some money now. And then suddenly a $20,000 payment comes in from a client plus another, then we do a workshop, and then like, okay. And suddenly I've got more than I've had. But you do start to emotionally relate to how much you have. And then I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll take this deal because I kind of feel like I might need it. Even though I don't actually need it, that's how my own feelings starts coming. And then I go, I've got to deal with my own trigger. That's like why Brent would say, deal with your own triggering around it before you would go talk to the client, right? Because if I go and talk to a client from a place of, you know what, I really would like this 20 grand, it would really, like, I feel like it would make a difference right now, versus the normal place of like, yeah, I don't need 20 grand. So we either do this deal because I want to, or we don't. And that's it. So it's like very much that place that you come from. And so that's why I come from that place, is I don't need the work. And so I would rather just be very clear.
Interesting. I might try that just to see what happens.
Well, think about it. If you told 10 people you charge 20 grand up front, or you told all of them that you'll do a proposal, and 8 of them go, well, that's way too much. And you go, okay, cool. We weren't going to work together anyway. And then 2 of them are like, okay, let's see what you can do. And you end up with 1 or 2 new clients, instead of talking to, like, you may end up talking to 7 of them otherwise, and then doing work with 4 of them for significantly less, or you end up doing work with 1 of them anyway, the same amount of work in the end, but you just spent maybe 7 times the amount of time on the front end vetting out clients.
This is great, man. This is because I've learned from like other like consultants, other guys in like the whole internet marketing consulting space, and they all have like a completely different approach. So this is really, really fascinating to see that this is like the whole thing flipped on its head. And I can see it where it's like, well, you there's that mindset of like, well, I want to do more work. It's good to do those 7 calls, 8 calls for an hour each. When it's like, well, what if you get the same result doing, 10 5-minute calls, and one of them is like, oh, 20K, yeah, that's fine. Like, let's talk about the actual project now. It's just,
yeah, because I don't want to talk to them if they don't want to pay that.
Right.
It is interesting too, because again, like, go ahead.
I mean, well, because so the thinking, the reason why I've done it, because I've been sort of, I don't know, not really raised, but like brought up on this whole idea of you've got to get on the phone, you build some rapport, you do this discovery phase where you ask them lots of questions, and then you do this sort of offer building phase, and then you get them to buy into that. It's this whole like long-winded thing. And then finally at the end of like a 60 or 90-minute phone call, you're like, so the price is this. And a lot of them are like, that's too much. And it's, you just spent an hour and 15. You rationalize it by saying, well, you do 5 of those and you sell 1 of them, it still works out, you make your money. But I think the fear, because I'll probably have to do a correction on this tomorrow, but the fear is that I somehow need all of that to get the sale, that 20. But I suppose, maybe not. Maybe all those people who would say no, like who are going to say no, even if I do that long-winded process, is going to say no up front anyway. And the one guy who's 20K is going to be fine for, he doesn't really care whether you say it at the end of the phone call or in the first 5 minutes. So it's kind of like it's all redundant, really, that whole process.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you say it's 20K up front, and then you go, well, look, I see that there's a lot of value in this long term. And so I'll do this for 15 grand, or I'll do it for 10 grand on the only based on the fact that you will absolutely test this, and that there is this back end in place, because I believe that I can beat this, and that we're going to, so, but that immediately, that price anchor makes a huge difference, right? They immediately know that you're worth this certain amount, and that changes I had a guy message me yesterday, or I think I saw it this morning or today or whatever. And he said, could you maybe, I wonder if you could like consult or write an email for me, whatever, what do you charge? And I just said, I said, I don't write much. If I do, it's 1,500 an email and plus back end. And he wrote back and was like, and I don't expect most people to pay that. So I don't care, right? Like, cause then I could be like, well, maybe I want the money. Maybe I'll do it for 500 or 700. I'm not going to do that. Cause if it's 1,500 and it's 1 or 2 emails and I sit there and it's 1,500 to $3,000 and it takes me 30 minutes to an hour, that's still good money. So it's like, but I come at it right away because I've thought about that. Well, here's my back. I don't ever tell people my background. They kind of don't. If they know, then I'll them obviously. But it's like, here's what I charge, and then because everything you're doing from a place of how much you're worth, right? So if I start from, well, I did this, and I've sold $100 million online, and I sold my own water company, and I have this, and I have this. Then they're trying to figure shit out in their head. What are you worth? What's it going to cost? I just go, I charge 25 grand for a sales letter up front plus back end. Here's what I've done. And everything is now validated through the lens of how much I charge. Right? Just like if you're in a store and you see that there are 3 air purifiers side by side, one of them's $100, one of them's $300, one of them's $1,000. That's the first thing you see. You're now going to view everything through the lens of how much they cost, and you're going to immediately believe that the $1,000 one is better, even if it's not. But the high price is the lens that you see everything through.
Yeah.
You froze.
I'm still here. I think I'm just sitting really still. I love it, man. And this is like, I was like, I've got all this work to do. I've got to watch some of your webinars from the course, but I'll probably do this up in the morning in half an hour and send it over to him, which is going to be quite funny.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to send it over. I mean, yeah, I'll send this video out to my list and you can do the same. And then I think if people want to buy now, it's 8020emailcopy.com/8020emailcopy. And I'll also give you guys my contract structure. I could also probably take a few emails I've sent to people and just show them what I write.
That'd be awesome.
In the email about what I charge and how. Yeah, I could do that.
And put it in this little doc so they can see it. But,
cool. Yeah, and then maybe I'm supposed to meet my parents on Thursday. I'm going to San Diego to play a tennis tournament with my dad, but I'll either be in Palm Springs or San Diego Thursday night. I've got to leave Thursday morning. So if we can make it work and do a live call, great. If not, life goes on. But I think this will be pretty valuable for people.
Yeah, man. That needs to be different because we didn't really talk at all about actual, like what the emails are actually going to say or anything. It's nothing to do with any actual writing. It's more of the deal structure, like you said, which is really what decides who earns a lot of money and who doesn't. So I mean, now what I'm thinking.
I said, if you want to learn the writing side, you go to the course anyway.
Yeah. If you want to learn the writing side, definitely get the course. So I could just send this to him. As in, like, I'll outline the emails and have email 1, welcome email, shit like that. So it'll be more like, email 1, welcome, email 2, did you get this email, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, literally, I would just take the structure that, and then just send him that, and he'll be like, huh. Because when you name them as well, when you put like hero story, correlation email, Seinfeld email, whatever the fuck, whatever names are in there, Mr. Miyagi email, like literally put those in there. And he's like, what are these type of emails? And it's like, oh, these are these types that I know work based on past data. It's like, oh, that's really interesting compared to email 5, I'm going to write about this or this. Like, there's a lot of curiosity in here. And it looks like that this is based on something, which it is. And then, the email 8 is, FAQ email and whatever it is, like, I think that'll work well.
Yeah. It's also really simple.
Again, if he's like 20,000 is too much, if you end up back down at 12K, that's still where you originally started.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really interested, man. I'm going to try it your way just to see. I've never done it that way before. So, and that whole $1,000 per percent, I mean, that'd be, I've never done that. So like, that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, it can be a lot of money, especially if if you said half their revenue is coming from their list and you can grow their list faster, because they can literally, like, that's the other thing is like, you can say to him, one of the biggest advantages to me helping increase the email revenue is that you can buy more traffic and and grow your list faster.
Well, one of their main, they're very organic with their traffic. Really,
Okay.
a lot of traffic, but a lot of it's organic with the blog articles and things like that. I don't know if they're buying that much traffic.
Yeah.
So, and then they go
then that's not super relevant.
They'll have different like lead up. So the other thing too, I keep thinking of new things, but so you do this, you come back 30 days later, you get your 1%, 1 gram per percentage improvement or whatever, and then you might go, well, let me go back in there and let me look at the stats, and I'll rearrange the emails based on what's working, and I'll try and beat it again, and we'll do the same thing. If I beat it by the whatever percentage, it's a grand up again. So you can put that in the contract too, where it's like so then and then he goes, yeah.
Yeah. So whatever it is, and it may be half, maybe maybe it's the same, or maybe it's half again, or whatever it is. But I would start with the same and then go down. But you just go, I'll do it again, but no upfront fee this time.
Yeah, just the back.
I've done that. I'm doing that with a client now, where I'm going back to something I beat before, but I'm not having them pay me 20 grand up front again. It's just the same structure on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to pee super badly, so that's probably a good cue.
The other things too. The other one we should mention here is Lionheart. I'm all about this. I think you guys are serious, like on this. And let's add another link here so people can see it. But no, man, I've been through a lot of different, like I meditate. I've done a lot of spiritual or emotional processing type of stuff. And I keep telling you, I've been taking my girlfriend through it. And it's changing everything. Like it's given me an entire framework to understand. Like I'm going through my day and I will have a certain thought about something. And in a few seconds I go, oh, that's just my team. Oh, my team's like acting out right now. Oh, that's cool. Like, give them some love and you let it go. Maybe you write a correction. And it's just like, I've done a lot of other stuff, but it's very passive. You very just like wait, you surrender, you feel your shit, and maybe it goes away or maybe it improves, but a lot of time it doesn't. Whereas this is more like, the way I'm describing it to people is like, it's like heart surgery, but for your emotional shit. So, I mean,
it's a really good way to put it. I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what it is.
We'll have to do a separate call just talking about Lionheart stuff too, because that stuff is so fascinating. And I really appreciate it too, and it makes me super happy. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done, for sure. I mean, at the last advanced workshop, we had a guy at the end who said, "You guys might have saved my life." Like, he had already tried to kill himself at the start of this year, and he failed. And then he was already fully planning his next attempt soon. And he had been to an intro at this point. This is after he had first tried, and he was basically on the verge. I didn't realize, like, he didn't tell us this right when he came in, but like he was on the verge of doing, of ending it all. And he just started writing corrections. He had 3 notebooks of corrections when he came in. He said it's the only thing that's ever made him feel better. And this is a guy who's 40 years old, who's also, got ridiculous amounts of financial success, women, different things, and still just hasn't gone to the root of anything. And so has used, different things to cover it up. And so it's like, it's pretty crazy. That alone makes every single thing I've ever done with this business worthwhile, just for that one person. But, and then there's people who have never had, I've never had a suicidal thought of, people who've had good lives and stuff who have dramatic improvements. And so it's what you said when you messaged me earlier, is so many people experience just feeling light. And just less. And what's cool is you're being very proactive with your corrections. Some people, what happens a lot is people go, yeah, I did a few corrections and now I just feel pretty good most of the time and haven't really done many lately. And it's like, that's fine. But it's cool if you can continue to sort of be, instead of like reactive to corrections, you become sort of proactive. And that's sort of where I feel I'm at, where it's like, oh, here's this thing that I think could be a big deal. Let's deal with that now before it becomes a big deal. And that's like, there's a book called The Big Leap, which I used to recommend to everyone. I still think it's a great book. all about upper limit problem and how and self-sabotage. And the thing is, it makes you really aware of your self-sabotage, but it doesn't actually give you a way to deal with it. And so I have a friend who's coming to this workshop because his wife had already gone, and he was like, I don't know. And then I talked to him, and I talked to him about self-sabotage. And I was like, this is the only way I actually have ever found to deal with the self-sabotage before it actually sabotages you. Because you can become aware of how you're self-sabotaging, but if you don't have a way to actually deal with it, then it doesn't matter. You're just still going to keep fucking it up, or you're just going to be aware of what you're fucking up. With this, you can be like, oh, this is going to be a big thing. Let's deal with it now.
Well, I mean, I reckon it feels worse because, like, I mean, I think every entrepreneur, anyone, especially entrepreneurs, maybe everyone everywhere, you have that sense of like imposter syndrome, and like you're aware of it, and other people will point it out to you, and you journal about it, and you read these books about it. But it's always like everyone's got all this pop self-help shit. Like just believe in yourself, man. Like just fuck it. Like just fake it until you make it. But like none of that changes like the underlying sense of guilt and shame that's really driving the thing. So I reckon in many ways it can make you feel worse because once you're aware of the issue, then you feel powerless to change it. Whereas before you were sort of, the whole ignorance of bliss.
And it becomes part of your identity. That happened to me with imposter syndrome. Is you don't know what it's called. Somebody tells you have imposter syndrome. And you go, oh, yes, I do. Huh. I am an imposter. And then you become the thing that it's like I wrote that email the other day that you are not your diagnosis. Like, it's just like anxiety and depression. You can go in and be like, yeah, sometimes I feel a little worried. And they go, oh, you have anxiety. What if they don't have anxiety? What if they just sometimes feel anxious? And then the second that they're told they have anxiety, they start to repeat to other people, I have anxiety. And then they start to have more anxiety. I just said this to my employee yesterday is I've stopped calling myself a writer. And when I stopped calling myself a writer, I stopped writing as much. But I am a fucking writer. So I've decided again, I'm like, yeah, I'm a writer. That's part of who I am. And it's like, and the second I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like I'm going to write more again. It's like whatever we think we are, we tend to fulfill that prophecy. And so the imposter syndrome shit is super dangerous. And the only way I have friends who have strategies, which are basically what you said, fake it till you make it. Like, oh, I'll worry about that when I get to this amount, or I'll worry about that when I get here, as opposed to actually being able to deal with why it's coming up and go back to where the imposter syndrome came from and then remove it.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Shit, man.
I just want to get out to one of these workshops. You go pee.
Yeah, I know. You got to get out here, man.
Yeah, dude. Sometime next year.
Get out here and yeah, it'll be good. You can meet Brent in person and.
Oh, I love to do it. I want to do the advanced. See if I can time the advanced workshop at the same time, but we'll see.
Yeah, you might be able to. And then depending on what we decide with people who've gone through the corrections course, if somebody's actually like truly done the work, there's potential to be able to go maybe straight into it. Depending, something we've been trying to figure out, because to rely on the fact that somebody's really done the course enough to feel ready for an advanced, we don't know how we feel about that yet. So
that's one thing you should probably, because I was
actually doing the work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was curious about that already. Because I was already thinking, I've done the corrections course. I'm going through it again right now with my girlfriend here in Thailand. And now I'm already starting to wonder, like, all right, well, how much new stuff is there going to be in the actual workshop itself? That I'm guessing there is, because it's 3 days worth. But I don't know. I feel like I have the gist of how.
There's a lot of, you get to ask questions, obviously, and like there is a lot of other stuff, but the core material is in that course. Yeah. Like the actual nuts and bolts of the processes are in that course. And then in the advanced, you basically go through family rules and roles, which is one of the most fascinating things in the world, to find out what role you played in your family and what rules they had. Because we basically we'll take those same rules we had growing up that we didn't even know we had, and we're applying them in our business. And we're treating our girlfriend based on how our mom treated us. And I basically realized that every relationship, my mom, when I was like 12 or 13, I realized she wasn't going to be happy. Like, it's not like she was miserable or anything, but I wasn't going to make her happy, and that wasn't my responsibility. And that was very lucky that I realized that when I was like 13. However, and I stopped that with her, but what I found out in my advanced was every relationship I'm in with a girl, when I start to care about them, I start to treat it like my mum, because the big rule was, if mum's happy, then everything's okay. So when a girlfriend is unhappy, which could have nothing to do with me, I just want to make that okay, and I'll drop everything in my life. And that's not healthy. So like that one thing alone is a dramatic change for my relationships. And then, my rules were different than a lot of families. I didn't realize that. I thought that every single family, like sports were the most important, tennis was the most important thing, and you had to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
Winning is all that matters, and such things.
Oh, dude, this is it. Yeah, we can talk about this forever.
We'll do a call about how the Lionheart stuff's helped you and stuff, and we can do that another time for sure.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Well, thank you for today. This is great. I'll set the doc up so you can put that into YouTube comments or something like that, so people can check it out. And you can add the contracts or whatever in there too. So there's like one central place or something like that.
Cool. Sounds great, man. Appreciate it. Hope this works out well. Let me know how it goes.
Will do, man. I'll text you when I hear back from the client.
All right, buddy.
See you, mate.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, buddy. Later.